Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's my favourite time of the week. It's Friday and you know what that means. It's time to look at all of my wrestlers of the week. What an eventful week it's been. We've had NXT TakeOver War Games, we've had Survivor Series, we've had Raw and SmackDown weren't that good this week, let's be honest with you. There was good wrestling to be found on Survivor Series, even though the show itself divided opinion. There was certainly good wrestling to be found at NXT TakeOver War Games. In many ways, I'm actually quite thankful that Raw and SmackDown weren't that good because it didn't give me too much competition when I was looking. It's actually worked out pretty alright. But let's first mention some honourable mentions. I want to give a huge shout out to two lads who really should have made Wrestler of the Week this week. Ricochet, because he did a double moonsault, and I can't believe he did a double moonsault and isn't making Wrestlers of the Week. That's how many good matches there were. And Pete Dunne as well, he was also excellent. And you know what, in fact, I want to give an honourable mention to everybody in that War Games match because I really loved it. I saw some people weren't too hot on it, they thought it maybe lasted a little bit too long, and I get that. And also there was just too many excellent singles matches this week, matches involving less people. And it's always hard to get maybe tag team wrestlers or multi-man wrestlers in Wrestlers of the Week, just because if there's an excellent, for example, in the case of War Games, 8-man match, it's really hard to, the responsibility of it being a great match is shared between all 8 dudes. Whereas if it's a singles match, it's only 2 people and they both look really good. Do you know what I mean? Do you see what I'm trying to say? So as much as I really wanted to fit Ricochet in, especially for that double moonsault, and just loads of the other guys deserved it too. Hansen looked really good in particular as well. I just can't fit you in, lads. I'm sorry. Okay? I got really aggressive there. I'm sorry. Also want to give a shout out to Buddy Murphy, who had a wonderful, wonderful match at Survivor Series, and also Chris Ridgway, who had a wonderful match at Progress. But neither of those two guys, again, could quite squeeze in despite their wonderful matches, just by virtue of bigger things going on in the wrestling world, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And usually it's New Japan doing this to other promotions, like I'll go, this person deserved to be in, but there was this insane thing happening over in New Japan. This week, it's all WWE and NXT sort of stuff that's overshadowing the rest of the lads. I just feel bad for them. I'm sorry, again. Let's get on with the list. Number 10, right, and a few people might be arguing that I've put her a little bit too low, but my number 10 this week is Charlotte Flair. Charlotte took part in one of the best matches of the night at Survivor Series, many people's match of the night in fact, against Ronda Rousey. Looked really good. I was well impressed with the match. There were reversals all over the place. Charlotte looked awesome. I remember at one point a spear in particular where Ronda was bragging and like, I'm going to win. Turned around and Charlotte just went through her. That was awesome. Led to a very good near fall. And the beatdown after the match, even though it was kind of disappointing to see it end in a DQ, the beatdown was really cool too. She used kendo sticks, she used chairs, she pushed a ref and that cost her 100 grand apparently. She stamped on a chair around Ronda's neck and tried to break her neck. That didn't cost her any money, according to Paige on SmackDown, who said that you can beat up Ronda, you can try and kill her. Don't you dare lay a hand on Mike Chioda. So that all, you know, that all gets Charlotte onto the list, but the reason I'm not giving her more points is because of SmackDown. I didn't enjoy the way she was booked after that. Because at Survivor Series, there were rumblings online, everyone was like, ooh, they're trying to make her into Becky Lynch, they're trying to transfer all of the badass behaviour that Becky's been exhibiting recently, and just put it right onto Charlotte, and we can just sort of forget that the Becky thing ever happened, because you're not allowed to get over unless we let you get over. But instead I looked at it like, no, this is alright, Charlotte's character is a little bit different from Becky's, it's going to be fine. And then I was proven wrong on SmackDown Live, where Charlotte just came out and acted like Becky, and it wasn't as natural a fit for her. Charlotte, as I said on Graded this week, is a much more composed and cool character, whether she's a heel or a babyface, whereas Becky can be the fiery, rebellious, badass one, and that's just the dynamic that would work better. Instead, they're trying to make Charlotte Becky, and Becky's noticed that if you've been keeping up to date with her Twitter recently. It's been quite hilarious. But one point to Charlotte, because she did wrestle really well and showed a lot of fire and anger and stuff, and that was cool, and it's not her fault that they've tried to make her into something she's not. She's just doing the best job she can. And it worked to a degree. Next up, number 9, it's her opponent, Ronda Rousey. You guys ready? Huh? You guys ready to see me do a Samoan draw? Huh? You guys ready? Huh? She gets 2 points this week. So the Ronda hype train started to slow down a little bit recently, mainly because of the rise of Becky Lynch and now Charlotte Flair. And Ronda's getting a bit Roman Reigns'd by this sort of phenomenon that's going on in the women's division at the minute of just people getting ridiculously over. It all goes back to Becky Lynch, to be honest. It's all kind of Becky's fault, but I'm not complaining because it's been awesome. But everyone's now kind of booing Ronda a little bit, and it's not that good. When she was walking out after being beaten down by Charlotte or sore, she wasn't getting sympathy. She was getting jeered and booed, and it was like, it never works, does it? Triple H tried to do this when he got injured against Brock Lesnar and then walked out slowly and everyone just laughed at him. The next night on Raw, I think, was when he collapsed in that match with Curtis Axel, and again, didn't really get as much sympathy as I think he wanted. It just doesn't seem to work, because in wrestling, as Matthew pointed out to me, people like to see someone kick someone else's ass. It's the very fundamental nature of wrestling, and we don't feel sorry particularly when someone, especially someone as cocksure and as naturally gifted as Ronda, gets taught a lesson or two. We don't really feel too much sympathy for them. But regardless, I had to give Ronda some points this week because she was a badass in her match with Charlotte until the DQ. Ronda, right, I thought when she debuted at WrestleMania, I was like, she's great. She can do set piece moments, she can stand in a certain position, she can do a good move, she can shout at the crowd, and she can stand in the right place and not mess anything up. And then gradually I thought, she's alright at wrestling as well, you know, she can have a decent sort of match with someone. And then now I'm like, oh, she can wrestle. Like, she can do counters and holds and flips, and she's naturally incredibly gifted, and it's just sickening for all the rest of us who ever dreamed of being a wrestler. It's sickening that someone can just waltz in, all confident, and just be great at it. But she is great, she's so good already. And it's not even been a year yet on the main roster. How good is she going to be if she sticks at this, and if they don't mess up her booking? Because as Roman Reigns has shown, you can be as good at wrestling as you want, but if the fans don't enjoy the way you're being booked, it's not going to help you that much. Next up, the import killer, or the import... Right, I can do this. Next up, the import killer, or the killer import if he's wrestling outside of Ireland. Jordan Devlin. Yes, this week's number 8 is Jordan Devlin because he had a great match on the Progress show that dropped this week on demand against Chris Ridgway. Ridgway and Devlin are a really good matchup. Devlin is an all-rounder, kind of, I guess. He's a bit of a methodical heel sometimes, grinding his opponents down, but at the same time, he's got this amazing athletic side to him as well. He can flip with the best of them. He can spring about the ring. He's like a pinball who occasionally likes to get nasty. So from a great all-rounder in Jordan Devlin, we have a great opponent for him in Chris Ridgway, one of this week's honourable mentions, but I just couldn't squeeze him in. But Ridgway is a more straight, like martial artist, kind of strikes-based guy. Again, a fantastic wrestler, but not as much of a wrestler's wrestler, I guess, as Jordan Devlin. But they were still matched incredibly well, and they tore the house down at this Progress show. There were a lot of good matches on this Progress show, and I'm sad that it dropped this week purely because there was no room to fit everyone in who deserved it. Mark Haskins as well. That's another honourable mention I wanted to give. And probably Volta, but I mention him every single week, so no one cares anymore. Devlin also seems to be setting himself up for a big marquee showdown match, potentially for the United Kingdom Championship, against PT Dunne. That again is another good stylistic clash, especially because both men have a real mean streak in terms of their in-ring style. There'll be a lot of finger bending, there are a lot of stomps and that to the head and stuff, hopefully. I can't wait for it. And when that happens, Devlin will hopefully have a shot at getting the points that he really deserves. Not like 3 points like this week. He deserves more. It was just timed badly. Number 7, Mustafa Ali. Oh yes, right. So Buddy Murphy was an honourable mention this week. I just couldn't fit both guys in. But what a hell of a match they put on at Survivor Series. I loved watching this. This was really satisfying to watch because the crowd started off just like... Cena! Do you want popcorn? And then gradually, as the match wore on, Ali and Buddy Murphy reeled the crowd in, and we got a 205 chant because they're from 205 Live. We got "This is awesome" chants. They went all out to impress, and it was Mustafa Ali who really impressed me because he was putting himself in harm's way so much, but it was really cool. There was a sick bump he took, and these weren't botched bumps, they were just brave bumps. There was a bump he took where he was in midair and got just blasted into the crowd barrier by Buddy Murphy, like in an anime or something. There was a Spanish fly off the announce table that he actually gave to Murphy, which again looked like something out of Dragon Ball Z. It was such a good match, and although Mustafa Ali lost, I've decided to give him the point ahead of Murphy just because I think he was the one who really was the star of the match despite not coming out the champion, if that makes sense. But Buddy Murphy remains one of my most impressive guys this year. I love him. Mustafa Ali, though, is on the same sort of level playing field, in my opinion. Number 6, and a first time ever appearance on Wrestlers of the Week for Brocky Lesnar. Dum, 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 dum. There's people downstairs and I've just stamped on the floor. They're going to think, what the hell's going on? No, they're not. They're downstairs all the time and Ross works here. They're not going to care what I do. I'm much quieter. That's right, number 6, and finally making his Wrestlers of the Week debut is Brock Lesnar, because as we all know, when Brock Lesnar's against someone he doesn't really care about, he suplexes them a lot of times and hits a few F5s and wins. When he's against someone who he respects and who is a great wrestler like AJ Styles, or like his opponent this week, Daniel Bryan, he reminds us all why we first fell in love with Brock Lesnar. He can sell his arse off, and for someone who's 6'4" and full of muscle, that's a musical reference. He just can make himself seem like he's in so much pain. He can make himself seem like he's about to lose the match at any second. When Daniel Bryan had him in that yes lock and he was about to tap out, I forgot that, you know, from what we know about the contractual situation at WWE, there was no way that Brock Lesnar was going to tap out. I forgot all that because he convinced me through his body language and through his actions and through the pacing of the match up until that point. It was great. In my head, I can't quite work out whether I preferred that or Charlotte versus Ronda. I think I preferred this match. The first half was obviously hard to get into when Lesnar was just tossing Daniel Bryan left, right and centre. But no, I think this was my favourite because when Bryan came back and the way that Lesnar bumped and sold, it was so good. It was the best thing on the show, I think. I think it was. I think I prefer that match a little bit. Well done, Brock Lesnar. Welcome to Wrestlers of the Week. Imagine if, that would be the least likely thing ever, but imagine if Brock Lesnar, out of all the wrestlers in the world, was the one who was the biggest Wrestlers of the Week. Like, he knew about the series, he wanted to do as well as he could, and he's sat at home with Sabre right now. He's like, yes, finally made it on the Jack's Wrestlers of the Week. It's quite sad that I've thought that, really, isn't it? Number 5, and as Booker T said on the Survivor Series pre-show, he coined the term, "That's my boy D-Bry," and this is my boy D-Bry. He coined the term, "That's my boy D-Bry." That widely used phrase that we use in day-to-day life. Getting on the bus, that's my boy D-Bry. Going to the shops, that's my boy D-Bry. Getting a drink on a night out, oh, thank you very much, that's my boy D-Bry. Yes, let's all comment, "That's my boy D-Bry" in the comment section, please, thank you. But this week, this is my boy D-Bry, because for whatever I said about Brock Lesnar and how well he sold and everything in the match, my boy D-Bry was just one notch ahead of him in terms of being one of the best wrestlers in the goddamn world. Daniel Bryan made me think that he was really hurt at one point. I mean, he might have been hurting a little bit because he did land really high up on his back or his head when he took that first German suplex, I think, and I was really worried. But the way he sold this initial onslaught from Lesnar was amazing. Through just facial expressions and through lying really still and defeated, you could tell that Daniel Bryan was trying to get across the message, oh no, I shouldn't have come back to wrestling. This was a huge mistake. And then the comeback started. And yes, he's a heel now. He did have to use a low blow when the referee had been bumped. But there was the knee, there was the strikes, there was the yes kicks, there was the yes lock that I almost thought was going to pull off this most monumental of victories. And it didn't, sadly. But I love this match. And I think most of it's down to my boy D-Bry. And that's not to take any credit away from Lesnar, who was superb as well. But this match really reminded everyone that Daniel Bryan is still one of the best in the world, and I couldn't be happier about it. Number 4, some very, very good performances in this week's top 4, and I struggled for ages on how to rank them, and I'm still not convinced I've done the right thing, but I just had to go ahead with it. So number 4, the NXT champion, Tommaso Ciampa. So Tommaso Ciampa retained his NXT title at TakeOver War Games against Velveteen Dream, and continued to look really strong, actually. Not only is he like a devious and evil heel, top heel villain champion, but at the same time, he's also really friggin' tough as well. And I'm glad that he's not lost that since the DIY days, where DIY were renowned as like the plucky babyface tag team. He's still very plucky, maybe not in an underdog way though, maybe more in a can't you just stay down you little bastard sort of way. Like, Ciampa kicked out of a lot here. He was kicking out of finishers. He kicked out of the Death Valley driver on the, I thought it was on the concrete, the exposed floor at first, and then he got rolled in and hit with the elbow, and I was like, he shouldn't be kicking out of that really. But then it was pointed out by someone online, it might have been Brandon Stroud from Up Rocks, I'm not certain, that Dream actually Death Valley drivered him onto the double padding because they'd rolled the padding over, so he was actually extra protected when he landed. That made a lot more sense in terms of him kicking out, I guess. I could forgive that. Once I saw that explanation, I was like, man, even the part of the match that I thought took away from it the most, even that worked out better in hindsight. I also really enjoyed the finish here with Ciampa lying across the ropes to kind of bait Velveteen Dream into using another elbow. Moving out of the way at the last second, Dream crashed and burned, and then Ciampa just dragged him over and hit that DDT onto the steel connecting the two War Games rings and pinned him and remained the champion. And as much as I and everyone in the world wanted to see Velveteen Dream win the NXT Championship, I can't begrudge extending Ciampa's reign longer because he's phenomenal. He's a really, really good NXT champion, and I'm certainly not sick of seeing him win yet. Number 3, his eternal foe and nemesis, Jonathan Gargano. So Gargano was in the other match of the weekend against Alistair Black, and I bet you can't guess who numbers 1 and 2 are. And Gargano here was awesome. This was such a smooth and slick match. It was the smoothest match of the night. I think I slightly maybe preferred Ciampa versus Dream as an overall match, but in terms of individual little performances here and there, I think Gargano and Black turned in such a flawless performance. They were both, you know when two wrestlers are wrestling and you're like, they're both on form. Like when it's like Omega and Okada, you're like, these guys are both on another level and they're working really well together with each other. Gargano and Black have that similar sort of chemistry where everything they do is timed perfectly, everything makes sense, everything is countered and evaded well, every move hits harder. It was just awesome. Of course, the spot I'm going to mention is the one where Gargano dived outside the ring and was met with a big knee from Alistair Black. That was insane. And the ending as well, with Gargano, just before the ending actually, let me rewind a little bit to where Gargano was going full heel, groveling at Black's feet, going, forgive me, and like, just spare me, and all this sort of stuff. It was great. A little bit melodramatic for some, but it's wrestling, shut up. Black picked him up, hit the two Black Masters, obviously, one which led to Gargano naturally just falling against his chest. It almost seemed like an accident, it was great. And then he got wiped out with the second one, and they were connecting pretty hard by the looks of it. And it was just a great performance. I want to see Gargano redeem himself and turn babyface again. And the fact that Black said to him, I absolve you of your sins, gives me a little bit of hope that that's actually a little bit of symbolism and foreshadowing, and that Gargano will actually go back to the good side and will eventually manage to vanquish Ciampa. But we'll see what happens. Number 2 on today's list, and one of the early frontrunners actually in Wrestlers of the Week history at the start of the year, before falling off a little bit because of just the stacked nature of NXT's roster, I guess. But it's the sinister man from Amsterdam, Holland, Alistair Black. I know it's Amsterdam, by the way, I'm not stupid. Alistair Black had a really good match with John Gargano, which I've just talked about at length, so I'm not exactly certain what more I can say here, really. I know what I'll talk about. First of all, he was great in this match for all the reasons I've already said, and the two Black Masters at the end were really, really cool, and the dialogue was really cool as well. But I will say this. I don't want to see Alistair Black win the NXT Championship back. I want to see him go to the main roster, and this is a point of debate in the office, because I think it was Pacitti and me had a bit of a debate about it, or me and Sam, I can't quite remember. I think that Alistair Black is going to be dynamite once he hits the main roster. I think stick him on Raw, have him turn up in the Rumble and eliminate some fools, probably don't win it, but have him look really cool, and I think there you go, you've got your new star made. He looks the part, he's awesome in the ring, he's got a distinctive moveset. He cuts good promos. You could say his voice isn't booming enough or whatever. My voice isn't booming enough, and you're watching this video, mate. I think that Alistair Black is good at delivering his lines and everything, and is a convincing actor, and I think he's got all the tools. And I can honestly see a future world title reign, whether it's Universal or WWE, in his future. But I hope he does. Well done, Alistair Black. Number 2 this week, 9 big old points for you. And finally, number 1, and a first time ever Wrestler of the Week. I am delighted, I'm so delighted to give this week's big old 10 points to the Velveteen Dream, D-R-E-A-M. Wrestler of the Week decision is a combination of two things. One, his match with Ciampa was great, as we've already discussed. Secondly, the overness. Did you hear how much the crowd wanted Velveteen Dream to pin Tommaso Ciampa in this match? This was such a loud match, one of the loudest matches of the weekend, and on a weekend also featuring the likes of Rousey and Lesnar and Bryan. That's really saying something. I know that NXT atmospheres are renowned for being more intimate and therefore more boisterous and more, I guess, passionate. But even by NXT standards, the reaction for Velveteen Dream was insane. I love the entrance, dressed as Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I don't agree with the whole lionizing of Hulk Hogan thing, but when I watch Velveteen Dream's entrances, I feel like there's a lot of irony there. I don't think he's taking it completely seriously. I mean, he's prancing around and stuff. I love the early sort of showmanship between himself and Ciampa, fighting over the headband and that sort of thing. And then when the match got serious, he demonstrated again why he's just such an utter natural, not only as a wrestler, but as a WWE superstar as well. He paces everything well. He's one of the sort of best products of WWE's Performance Center and the whole system and everything, without having all those years on the independent scene to sort of refine his in-ring style. He's just got that already. It's truly terrifying, and he is absolutely superb. I also want to say as well that I'm very interested in the post-match backstage extra interview that I don't think was on the show, but it was on YouTube, where someone tried to get an interview with him and he just went, leave me alone. I think it was Kathy Kelly, and he was like, no, just go away, Kathy, I don't want to talk about it. And it was the very opposite of what we're used to seeing from Velveteen Dream. He was reserved, he was defeated, he wasn't confident at all, and I hope that carries on, and I hope we get a bit of a breakdown angle before he finds his mojo again gets back on form, and then eventually maybe wins the NXT Championship. I'd love it. So that's it for Wrestlers of the Week this week. Now let's take a look at that lovely little league table. So as we can see, the top 5 remains the same, but Johnny Gargano has leapfrogged Matt Riddle in the standings. Also, Tommaso Ciampa has jumped ahead of the sadly still injured Hiromu Takahashi, and a little bit further down we can see that there's Mustafa Ali rocketing ahead of the likes of Suzuki, Ricochet, honourable mention, I'm sorry, Ricochet, and Marty Scurll as well. There's Alistair Black, there's Buddy Murphy, another honourable mention, and there's no further lads on this week's list as we reach Andrade Cien Almas at the bottom. So that's it for Wrestlers of the Week this week. Not long left to go until Christmas and then the end of the year. Who will win? It's a narrowing field, to be honest, and Ospreay is obviously the heavy favourite, but Zack can still win, Omega can still win. It's not all sorted quite yet. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to at Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic and check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, if you haven't done already, to join us.